Oluchi the Snake Child. Chapter 1, The Shedding. The first memory Oluchi had was not of a lullaby, but of a hiss. It was a soft, internal sound, like steam escaping a clay pot, and it lived in the marrow of her bones. She was 5 when her skin began to peel for the first time. It started as an itch on the small of her back, a persistent irritation that made her wriggle against the mud wall of her family's hut. Her mother, Nkwo, a woman with hands worn smooth from grinding cassava and a heart just as steady, noticed the red patches. She applied shea butter, humming a tune older than the village of Nkwo. But the patches spread, dried, and turned not to healthy pink, but to a dull, papery gray. "It is just a strange rash, my little kola nut," Nkwo whispered, but her eyes, the color of dark earth, held a tremor. One afternoon, while playing near the stream with other children, the itch became unbearable. Oluchi hid behind the broad trunk of an okwa tree. She scratched, and a whole sheet of gray skin, thin as a cicada's wing, peeled away in one perfect piece. Underneath was new skin, smooth and luminous, with a faint, opalescent sheen. And there, just for a moment, she felt a strange, sinuous power coil in her spine. She stared at the shed skin in her palm, not with fear, but with a deep, unsettling recognition. She ran home, not with the skin, but with the secret. That night, the village priest, Dibia Choku, a man whose beard was a cloud of white and whose eyes saw too much, dreamt of a great serpent coiled around the village's sacred iroko tree, its scales gleaming under a double moon. The next morning, he came to their compound. He took one look at Oluchi, who was quietly molding a clay snake by the fire, and his face tightened. He spoke to her father, Obina, a strong man who spoke with his hands and his silence. Words were exchanged in low, urgent tones: Ogu, spirit, omen. Oluchi heard the word Ik, python. It was not said with reverence, but with fear. Her difference, once a private itch, became public knowledge. The children who had chased butterflies with her now chased her with sticks, calling her Nwa Ogu, Snake Child. The adults' glances shifted from kindness to wary observation. Only Nkwo's love remained an unwavering fortress. Obina, torn between love for his daughter and duty to the village, grew quieter, his brow permanently furrowed. Oluchi learned to hide the sheddings. She would retreat to a secret clearing in the forest, a place where sunlight dappled through the leaves like scattered coins, and let her old skin slough off in private. She would bury the translucent sheets under soft loam. In that clearing, she felt no fear. The forest sounds were not threats, but a language. She could sense the rabbit's tremor in its burrow before it moved, feel the root-woven heartbeat of the trees. Sometimes, when utterly still, she could swear the vines themselves curled slightly toward her, as if in greeting. Chapter 2, The Whispering Forest. Years passed. Oluchi, now 12, was a creature of 2 worlds, the village of sidelong glances and hushed chores, and the vibrant, whispering embrace of the forest. Her connection to the land deepened. She could find the ripest berries, the sweetest water, the medicinal herbs that hid from other seekers. She began to leave small offerings, a perfect stone, a fallen feather, by an ancient, moss-covered stone in her clearing. One day, a different whisper reached her. It was faint, a thread of sound woven into the rustle of leaves. It wasn't words, but an impression, thirst, a deep, earthy thirst. Following the feeling, she found a small, choked spring, its lifeblood stifled by fallen debris and thick mud. Without thinking, she began to clear it, her hands working in rhythm with a newfound instinct. As the last clog of leaves gave way and clean water bubbled forth, a profound sense of gratitude washed over her, warm as sunlight. It did not come from within her, but from the ground, the trees, the very air. She confided this only to Nkwo. Her mother listened, her strong hands never stilling as she plaited Oluchi's hair. "The forest knows its own, my child," she said finally. "But remember, to the village, a power they do not understand is a power they must name. And they have named yours Ik." Be wise as the serpent, but walk with the feet of a daughter of Nkwo. Wisdom was tested when a sickness came to the village. It was a fever that dried the throat and clouded the eyes. Dibia Choku's remedies provided little relief. The villagers muttered, some eyes turned toward Oluchi's family hut. The snake child spirit brings imbalance, someone said in the market, the word slithering through the crowd. Oluchi, heart pounding with a mix of fear and resolve, went to her clearing. She pressed her palms against the ancient stone and asked. Not with her voice, but with that cold feeling in her spine. An image came to her, the blue-green leaves of the ojurosai tree, and the bitter root of the utozi plant, combined in a specific way she intuitively understood. She gathered the plants, prepared the infusion as the impression guided her, and brought it to Neka. For little Chidi, she said, referring to the blacksmith's younger son, who was worst afflicted. Her mother, faith warring with caution, took the potion. With Obina's silent consent, they administered it. The fever broke by morning. Chidi sat up, weak but clear-eyed. The miracle, however, was poisoned by fear. How did she know? The question was more terrifying than the sickness. Dibia Choku studied Oluchi with an inscrutable gaze. You have the forest ear, he acknowledged, his voice grave. But who speaks through you? The Earth Mother, Ola. Or the old ones of the wild? He declared a cleansing ritual was needed for the village. Oluchi was not named, but she was the unspoken center of it. As the drums beat that night, she watched from the shadows, feeling the gulf between herself and the dancing flames widen into an abyss. Chapter 3: The Broken Calabash. The tension was a taut vine, waiting to snap. It snapped over a broken calabash. Oluchi was fetching water from the now clean spring when Kosi, the weaver's son and a frequent tormentor, confronted her. Snake girl, he jeered, stealing our water to poison it with your shed skin. She tried to walk past, the hiss in her bones a quiet roar. He shoved her. The full calabash fell, shattering on the stones. The water, her gift to the village, poured uselessly in the dust. Look! Kosi shouted, gathering a crowd. She rejects our water. She thinks it is beneath her. Something in Oluchi unraveled. The years of sidelong glances, the hissed names, the isolation, they coalesced into a hot, sharp point in her chest. She didn't think. She turned to Kosi, and for the first time, she let the feeling out. Not a hiss from her mouth, but a projection of pure, primal warning, the essence of a serpent's coiled threat. It was a pressure, a vibration in the air. Kosi did not hear a sound, but he felt it. His eyes widened in animal terror. He stumbled back, tripped, and fell into the mud, screaming as if beaten. The crowd gasped. They had seen nothing, but they had felt the chill, seen Kosi's raw panic. Witchcraft, an old woman shrieked. The word, forbidden and deadly, hung in the air. That evening, the village elders gathered in the Obi. The verdict, delivered by a grim-faced Dibia Choku, was exile. The spirit within her is too strong, too wild, he said to Obina and Neka, his voice not unkind, but final. It disrupts the harmony of Nkwo. For the safety of all, she must go into the forest. Allah will decide her fate. Neka wept silent tears. Obina's shoulders, once so broad, slumped in defeat. Oluchi packed a small bundle, a knife, a fire striker, a change of clothes, and a small clay pot from her mother. Her heart was a stone. She had loved them, and her love had brought them shame. At the edge of the forest, as the sun bled into the horizon, Neka embraced her fiercely. The forest knows its own, she whispered again, pressing the clay pot into her hands. You are not a curse, Oluchi. You are a question the village is too afraid to ask. Now go and find your answer. Obina placed a hand on her head, a gesture of blessing he had not made since she was tiny. Be strong, he grunted, the words stick. Then she turned and walked into the deepening green. The village gate closed behind her with a thought that echoed in her soul. She was 13, and alone. Chapter 4, The Heart of the Wild. The first nights were a symphony of terror. Every rustle was a predator, every hoot a demon. She slept in trees, hungry and cold. She tried to hunt but could not bring herself to kill. She lived on roots, grubs, and the knowledge the forest subtly shared. Her turning point came at a river. Parched, she knelt to drink, and saw her reflection, wide, fearful eyes in a gaunt face. A water snake, sleek and green, slid past her image, merging with it for a moment. In that moment, she didn't flinch. She remembered her clearing. It took days to find it, using the deep, magnetic pull in her blood. When she stumbled into the Sundaput circle, it was as if the forest itself sighed. Here, she was not an intruder. She built a rough shelter against the ancient stone. She learned to listen not just with her mind, but with her skin, with the coil in her spine. She discovered she could sense the weather in the throbbing of tree roots, find tubers by the subtle pull in her fingertips. She also learned about her shedding. It was not just physical. With each shed, her connection to the forest deepened, and her understanding grew. She began to see patterns, the gossip of birds warning of a leopard's passage, the language of ants tracing paths to food. The forest was a vast, interconnected mind, and she was becoming a thought within it. One day, she found a duiker with its leg shattered in a hunter's trap. Its pain was a sharp signal in her awareness. Cautiously, she approached. The animal, wild-eyed with fear, stilled as she hummed Neckar's old tune. Using her knowledge of vines and splints, she tended to its leg. For weeks, she brought it water and forage. The duiker, whom she called Mbi, or gentle, stayed near her clearing, a silent, trusting companion. She was no longer just a refugee, she was becoming a caretaker. She missed her parents with an ache that was a physical hollow. But in the forest, she found a different kind of belonging. She was the snake child, and this was her realm. Chapter 5, The Wounded Land. The balance shifted when the loggers came. They arrived with the growl of machines, men from a distant city who saw trees as timber, not as beings. They began at the far edge of the forest, but their violence reverberated through the network Oluchi had come to feel as her own. She first felt it as a sickness, a dull, throbbing pain in the earth, a silencing of animal voices in the east. Following the distress, she witnessed the devastation, a swath of raw stumps, wounded earth, and the ghostly silence left behind. The forest whispered gratitude turned to a song of anguish. Anger, hot and fierce, rose in her. This was her home. These were her kin, the trees, the creatures, the very soil. She began a campaign of quiet resistance. She would sneak into their camp at night, using her serpent-like stealth to siphon fuel from their machines, hide their tools, and tangle their cables. She used her understanding of animal paths to lead a herd of irritable bush pigs through their camp. The loggers grew frustrated, muttering about bad luck and a cursed forest. Their foreman, a hardened man named Benga, dismissed the talk. But one afternoon, while inspecting a new cutting zone, he was bitten by a green mamba, a snake normally shy and elusive. It struck with an uncharacteristic speed. As his men rushed him away, Benga, in his feverish pain, swore he saw a girl with luminous eyes watching from the shadows, a duiker by her side. The incident spooked the crew. Many refused to return. Benga, surviving but shaken, reported the forest spirit to the authorities in the city. The story, twisted and exaggerated, reached Nkwo. Dibia Choku heard tales of a wild girl with power over snakes, healing the forest and harming men. Chapter 6, The Seeker. The story also reached someone else, Dr. Adiz Nordyke, an ethnobotanist from the university. She was a woman of science and spirit, who studied the old ways not as superstition, but as lost knowledge. The report of a forest-dwelling girl with profound healing and plant knowledge intrigued her. She saw not a monster, but a potential key to forgotten symbiosis between humans and the ecosystem. She came to Nkwo, seeking guides. The village was reluctant. But Nneka, hearing the doctor speak with respect of the forest's wisdom, stepped forward. "I will take you," she said, her voice firm. Obinna, seeing the desperate hope in his wife's eyes, agreed to accompany them. Dibia Chukwu warned them. "You may find a daughter, or you may find a spirit wearing her skin. The deep wild changes what it embraces." The journey into the forest was arduous for Nneka and Obinna. For Dr. Addis, it was revelation. She noted plant combinations she'd never seen, ecosystems in perfect health. They were being washed, she felt it. Small things, a strategically fallen branch forcing them to detour toward a clean spring, a cluster of healing herbs left conspicuously on their path. Oluchi knew they were coming long before she saw them. Her mother's presence was a familiar, aching song in the forest hum. She watched them from the canopy, a shadow among leaves. She saw the stranger with the kind, intelligent eyes, saw her father's guarded strength, her mother's yearning love. A war raged within her, the deep peace of the wild versus the primal pull of home. One evening, as they camped, the Daika, bored with Oluchi's proximity, stepped into the clearing. Nneka gasped. She recognized the animal's healed leg, the lack of fear. "Oluchi," she called into the gloom, her voice breaking. "My kola nut, we are here. We mean no harm." Oluchi, her heart pounding, let out a soft, involuntary sound, a sigh that carried the faintest sibilance. Dr. Addis heard it. She didn't recoil. She slowly sat down, open-palmed. "We come as seekers," she said, not to where Nneka looked, but directly to Oluchi's hiding spot. "I study how the forest speaks. I believe you have learned its language. I want to listen, with you." The honesty disarmed Oluchi. Slowly, she emerged from the foliage. She was taller, leaner, her skin held a strange luminescence, and her eyes held the ancient calm of the wild. She was a bridge between two worlds. Nneka ran to her, crushing her in an embrace. Obinna stood stiffly, then his resolve crumbled, and he joined them, his tears wetting her hair. Dr. Addis simply smiled, her eyes shining with wonder. Chapter 7: The Bridge. Oluchi led them to her clearing. Dr. Addis was enthralled by her symbiotic existence. Oluchi showed her how to listen for underground water, how certain plants thrived when spoken to, how the forest health could be read in the bark of a single tree. It was not magic, Addis realized, but an acute, empathetic sensitivity to biosignals and ecological patterns, honed to an instinctual level. "You're a living library," Addis whispered. "A custodian." Oluchi agreed to share her knowledge, but on one condition: the logging must stop. The wounded land must heal. Addis agreed. She saw a greater purpose, using Oluchi's insights to create a conservation model, a sanctuary protected not just by laws, but by understood, mutual benefit. They returned to Nkwo. Oluchi's return was seismic. The girl they had exiled walked back with the poise of a queen, a Daika at her heels, a respected scholar by her side, and her parents radiating a defiant pride. Dibia Chukwu met them at the gate. He and Oluchi locked eyes. He looked not at the girl, but at the spirit within. He saw not a demon, but a matured, focused power. He saw the respect the forest gave her. He bowed his head, a slight but profound gesture. The village held its breath. Addis spoke to the elders, not of spirits, but of economics, ecology, and sustainable heritage. She proposed that Nkwo become the guardian of the forest, with Oluchi as its guide. They could cultivate rare medicinal plants she identified, offer guided eco-tours, share non-timber forest products. The loggers' short-term money was a poison compared to this lasting sustenance. The elders were skeptical. But then, the sickness returned. A different strain, faster. The village healer was helpless. Oluchi went to the forest, listened, and returned with a new infusion. This time, she administered it openly in the square, under the gaze of all. She walked alongside Dibia Choku, combining his ritual knowledge with her intuitive botany. The sickness retreated. It was the proof they needed. The village had exiled a child for being different. That child had returned, not for revenge, but with the means for their salvation and prosperity. Chapter 8: The Sanctuary. In the years that followed, Nkwo transformed. The logging contracts were bought out with grants Adis helped secure. The Snake Child's Forest became the Nkwo Sacred Grove and Botanical Sanctuary. Oluchi, now a young woman, was its head curator and head of research. She taught the villagers how to harvest without harming, to read the forest signs, to understand its delicate balance. She worked with Adis to document the immense pharmacological knowledge in her mind. Scientists from universities came and were humbled by her understanding. Kosi, the boy who had tormented her, now a young man ashamed of his past, became one of her most dedicated forest rangers. "You forgave the forest for its thorns," he told her once. "I am learning to forgive myself for being one." She never fully shed her wildness. She still retreated to her clearing to moat, emerging with deeper insight. The hiss in her bones remained, but it was no longer a sign of alienation. It was her compass, a connection to the deep, pulsing heart of the world. She built a home on the edge of the village and the forest, a bridge in architecture as she was in spirit. Neka and Obina were her anchors, their pride a warm, constant fire. One day, a little girl from the village, born with a clubfoot, was brought to her. The child looked at Oluchi not with fear, but with awe. Oluchi took her into the forest. She didn't promise a cure. She taught her to listen to the wind, to feel the strength of the climbing vines, to understand the patient, shaping flow of water over stone. Over months, through exercises Oluchi designed and herbs she prepared, the girl's foot grew stronger. She would never run like the others, but she learned to walk with a unique, graceful stability. The villagers called it a miracle. Oluchi called it listening. Dr. Adis, during one of her visits, sat with Oluchi in her clearing. "You know," she said, "they will write papers about you. They will call you a genius, a savant, an ecological visionary." Oluchi smiled, running her hand over the ancient stone. "They can call me what they like," she said, her voice calm. "I am just Oluchi. The forest listens to me. I listen back. And together, we remind everyone that they belong to the world, too. Not as masters, but as children. Even a snake child." The sun set, painting the sky in scales of orange and purple. In the village, drums beat a rhythm of celebration and unity. In the forest, creatures stirred in the twilight. And Oluchi, the snake child, sat perfectly still at the center of it all, a quiet smile on her lips, her eyes reflecting the deep, knowing green of the wild, forever home.